Joining me today is Jeff Carlino. Jeff is the head of estate planning and a partner at Kenney, Shelton, Liptak, and Nowak. And I'm Colin Healy. If you don't know, from Pathway Partner Services, I'm the founder and CEO of the Pathway Partners brand here in Western New York. And we're going to try to do something really hard today. We are going to give you several topics that we think are timely for the end of 2025 and resolutions we want to attack for 2026. And we're going to try to do a few of them in 30 minutes. So the one thing that today we are not going to be able to do is answer live questions over Zoom. So if you do have questions that come up that you want to ask Jeff or you want to ask myself as a follow-up to today, at the end of the webinar, we'll put it in our chat information for you to do that. I'll ask Alex to go ahead and put it in the chat function. So if you look at the chat, Jeff's office and email will be located in there, as well as if you'd like to put mine in there as well, Alex, we'll have that for you. And then we'll put it on the actual recording so you can have that information available to anyone watching it as a recording. So let's get started, Jeff, a little bit. We've got a lot to unpack for 2026 New Year's resolutions that we can attack at the end of 2025. Just maybe take a moment, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself and your practice and maybe set the table for us.
Sure. Thanks, Colin. Again, my name is Jeff Carlino. I'm a partner at Kenney, Shelton, Liptak, Nowak, where I've been for about 15 years, been practicing for about 25. I practice in a very diverse set of practice areas, but two of the largest do involve estate planning and corporate transactional work. And as you're going to see here today, hopefully sometimes there's some overlap, surprisingly, between the two of those. The three things that I'm going to talk about today are number one, estate planning for the individual, and very, very brief touching on how that ties in with business. Number two, keeping your corporate books and records in order. And number three, business succession planning. So if it's okay with you, I'll hit the first leg of the stool.
Let's get started.
Okay. Estate planning. Estate planning can be very simple. It can be very complex depending on your circumstances. Sometimes people ask me to quote a flat rate, and it just can't be done, at least not until after the first meeting, because everything is highly customized. The basic estate package includes three key documents: a power of attorney, a healthcare proxy, and a will. Oftentimes, there are also trusts involved when there are circumstances that warrant it. Trusts may be revocable. They may be irrevocable. There may be supplemental needs trusts if you have children who have special needs and stand in the line of inheritance. There are many, many different factors that have to be considered. Very briefly, a healthcare proxy is what you use to appoint someone to make healthcare decisions for you, but only if you're unable to make them yourself. Until that lack of capacity arises, it has no power. A power of attorney is an important and easy to put together document, and very important one, especially if you have business holdings and business assets or personal business to do, because it allows somebody to make business decisions for you, whether you're incapacitated or not. So it's a handy tool. It's something you form while you have capacity, but it can be used when you lack capacity. The alternative of not having that is a very a very sticky wicket, because if you find yourself in a position where you suddenly lack capacity due to a health condition or an accident or what have you, and nobody is able to manage your affairs because you don't have a power of attorney, the alternative is a court proceeding called an Article 81 proceeding, which takes months, sometimes years to resolve, thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. Often it takes live testimony and expert opinions and certainly medical opinions. It's an extremely complicated, time-consuming, and expensive process that can all be avoided by simply having a power of attorney. And a will, of course, is the cornerstone of any estate plan. It specifies who gets what. It details, if you have children, who the legal guardians should be. And it specifies who is going to be in charge, the executor, the fiduciary, of marshaling your assets and then distributing them according to the will and according to the law. And again, when there are business interests involved, it can be very important if you If stock, for instance, or an ownership interest in a business is passing through your will, we'll talk some more about that later, but extremely important to have a will in place, have a trusted fiduciary, and have an idea of how the business will be impacted if your interest passes through your will.
And I think what's really important is we talked about you might or might not have those documents today. Step two, and maybe this is your resolution for 26, make sure they're updated, right? They may have been
Absolutely.
created a while ago and who knows what's in there.
Absolutely. Every part of this stool is a matter of timing and having and updating on a fairly regular or at least on an as needed basis.
Yeah.
But if you have a basic health or I'm sorry, a basic estate planning package in place, it's certainly important to update that over time, especially if you have kids or get remarried.
Sure. Life changes.
Or anything like that. Major life changes. You should take a second look at your estate plan and see whether changes need to be made and adjustments need to be made.
And I'll piggyback, and I think you'll hear us go back and forth a little bit. There's a lot of overlap, but do the same with your financial accounts. Take a look. Who are the beneficiaries on your accounts? Have you listed those individuals out? Has that changed? Have people been added? Should people be removed? Go through and do a sanitary check on all of that, both the documents that Jeff's referring to and all your financial accounts. I think that's just a healthy way to do it. And if you're going to make a resolution, I think that would be something for 2026 to take a look at. It doesn't take too long, but it means a lot, right?
Absolutely. For what you can accomplish in 2025, pick up the phone, make an appointment with your lawyer and your financial planner so that you can get advice in both directions and then take the next step with putting these documents together if you don't have them or updating them if you do.
Okay. I'm going to talk to the business community here on three things today as well. I'm going to get started with the first, but we're going to talk very, very briefly about some upcoming retirement plan changes here in New York State. We're going to do that one first, but I'll also let you know. We're also going to spend a little bit of time on the end of the year dates. What are some things that you should keep in mind for contributions, for anything else that you need to know in terms of what would be a key couple of dates and times and whatnot for you as a business owner. And last but not least, we're going to talk about valuation. So bringing it all together at the end with a little bit of the so what when it comes to the business side of things. But the retirement plan change piece, why am I going to talk about it very briefly today? The point is it's a 2026 activity. No one needs to do anything this moment. It's actually pretty late in the year to do much. You can make some changes here towards the end of the year in terms of your 401k or other corporate retirement plan that you put in place. But New York State is implementing a rule next year that will affect most of you. And most of you that are hearing this may or may not have a 401k. And you say, well, it doesn't affect me. I already have a 401k. There are activities you need to do. Even if you have a plan to be compliant for next year, you will be called upon to do an activity. Those that do not have a plan of any type and have more than 10 employees, you are the most impacted. Next year, New York State will tell you you're required to either create a plan based on a set of rules, or you're going to be opted into or choose to opt into the state plan. So if you are thinking about, what does my plan look like? Maybe I don't have one and I'm going to be forced to do something. Proactively have that conversation, have it with us, have it with someone else, but take control of that and figure out what the best fit is, whether it be a 401k or a simple IRA or what the best thing is for you and your firm. If you do nothing, you will eventually be subject to penalties. If you let us know in advance, hey, what should I do here or there? We're happy to steer you in the right direction. If you have a 401k already, it's an attestation process. It's making sure you filed what needs to be filed with the state. We can direct you and help you do that as well. But it's a great time to take a look at that plan to understand, am I doing what makes the most sense? Am I paying the right amount for it? Am I doing what I can for my employees to give them the best experience? So let us know. There's a lot more to that. We will be running a January webinar specifically on that topic because it is so wide reaching and will affect so many of you. That will be one of our January series topics, talking about those changes particularly that are coming up. We'll have some guest speakers on in January that can spend a little more time in detail on that. So Jeff, you talked a little bit about number 2 on this, which is, again, let's talk about getting things in order. And this is a little bit more on the corporate side.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Colin. Good stuff on the 401k. when everybody forms a business, they come in hot and they're ready to hit the ground running. The formation documents get filed, whether it's a corporation or an LLC, and they're off to the races until the next time where there's a major transaction or a financing event, and suddenly they need things that they often don't have. Keeping a corporate book is an essential part of every business entity, whether you're a corporation, an LLC, a PLLC, whatever it may be. Corporations, by definition, entities, business entities are often formed with a central purpose, and that is to provide a layer of protection between your individual assets and your business assets, so that if the business doesn't succeed, your individual assets will still be protected. That corporate protection can be at risk if you don't keep your books in order. You literally have to maintain certain formalities, and there's no black and white definition, but it's looked at as a whole if it ever falls under scrutiny. And one of the big things is maintaining your book, having an annual meeting. If you're a corporation, if you're operating through a corporation, you have a legal obligation to hold an annual meeting of shareholders. You've got to do it. And if you don't, you're exposing yourself to a claim by a creditor that you have not upheld the corporate formalities, and that could place your personal assets at risk. Have meetings, have them on notice according to the rules established by your bylaws, and obviously in connection with the business corporation law. Make sure you hold meetings and that you record minutes, and you pass resolutions when major decisions are made. One of the things that companies often don't do is I can't tell you how many times somebody comes to me for a transaction or whatever, and I ask them for their corporate book. And first of all, they can't find it. They don't know where it is. And then if they find it, nothing's been updated since 1982, when Grandpa started the business, and then Dad ran the business, and now the third generation is involved. None of this is documented in the book. Share certificate, share is still in the book. Number one, it's still there. It was never filled out. Now some of the shareholders may have passed, and it's going to be that much more difficult to get the book and to get the ledger in order. And it's very distracting. It's time consuming. It's expensive all at a time when you're coming to me because you want to buy or you want to sell or you want to finance, and you don't necessarily have that time or that money to spare. It could all be avoided by maintaining your corporate book as you go. And the third piece of that, a small piece of it, I'll point out, is that in doing that and maintaining your corporate book, upholding those formalities, recording things appropriately in your corporate book, you can protect the company even further against, I'll call them rogue agents. So that when you form an entity, you've got one, sometimes multiple business partners, and everybody's in love on their wedding day, right? Everybody gets along, and hopefully it goes along smoothly for as long as everybody wants it to. But we all know there are fallings out sometimes, and let's say a shareholder in a business has a falling out and he disappears, but the books and records are never updated to reflect that his banking authority has been revoked. And worse yet, the bank is never updated. If the bank is acting on actual authority, somebody has previously put something in front of them telling them that this rogue shareholder has authority to do banking. The bank is entitled to rely on that until somebody tells them otherwise. Yep. So if that rogue agent goes and cleans out the bank account based on expired authority because you didn't update your book, you didn't pass a resolution, and you didn't notify the bank, you're not going to have any recourse. It's very important for many reasons, therefore, to keep your books and records updated.
Yep, and I think that theme is developing here, right? Going back and treating with kindliness things that should be done. You don't want to get into a transaction. You get far down the road, you're excited for what could come next, and all of a sudden you have to go backwards and fix things that happened years prior, right?
Exactly.
Seems like a tough situation. We're going to cover next. I'm going to talk about some of the timeline again for the end of the year and leading into April 15th of next year. And just like Jeff started with, some of these topics are a blend between the business owner and personal. And I'm going to use rules of thumb here because this isn't necessarily exactly one or the other. Each individual type of deadline is unique to the type of account that we're talking about, and again, that your structure and your company, et cetera. So just thinking through some of the major things that people are most worried about. One is retirement plan contributions, and the other one is philanthropic gifts. And so for you as a business owner, let's start there. Many of the required actions that you need to do as a business owner need to be done by 12/31, especially if 12/31 is your time period for your fiscal year. But in terms of the eyes of a lot of the IRS rules, well, 12/31 is 12/31 is 12/31. There's not really anything else about it. So when it comes to what you're doing with your employees, whether it be matching anything in terms of those retirement plans, et cetera, the majority of those plans need to be done by 12/31. There's no chance in January to go back and say, please backdate this. So if you're waiting in the last moment to go through and create a transaction or some sort of a compensation for employees, then you want it in 2025. Don't wait to the week between Christmas and New Year. In the financial services world, we get a lot of phone calls between Christmas and New Year saying, oh no, I need to do this. I forgot about it. Use this as that catalyst to remember now. There's a lot more capacity for us to be able to go and execute those transactions, whether it be a funding situation, whether it be a request of one way or another. If you do those earlier, it's always a better situation. So from the perspective of the employer, to get anything done in 2025, especially as it relates to retirement plans, plan to do it now. Try to get that out of the way long before we get to the 31st. For individuals, if you are a either self-employed business owner or using a SEP or maybe contributing to an IRA, the individuals often have until April 15th. So you have a lot more flexibility in when to make that contribution. I can say, what was my taxable income last year? Do I want to make a healthy contribution? If my CPA or tax professional says I can, then go ahead and do that. You have until April 15th in order to do the majority of those transactions. So separating the two, if you have any questions, let us know. We can tell you what bucket you are in and exactly when the deadline is, but that is a very important piece. What is not arbitrary are philanthropic contributions. So if the company or you as yourself are looking to make a donation to charity and you want it done in 2025, the hard and fast deadline typically for that is going to be on 12/31. So if you make that contribution by the end of the year of this year, whether it's on the company side or whether it's on the personal side, you want to make that and get that done by 12/31. You're going to see the outcome you're looking for as it relates to both the tax situation and certainly the philanthropic cause would appreciate it because they're going to receive it on their books this year as well. So those are really some of the most important ones from an investment standpoint. If you do not talk to your financial professional about tax loss harvesting, this would be the time to do it. This is that time period where you can look at your taxable accounts. If you do have the opportunity to harvest losses, if you don't know what that means, give us a call. We're happy to explain that in detail. But harvesting losses against investment gains is a really good practice. And if folks can do it, again, you can only do it in 2025 to make sure that we, again, get rid of as many capital gains as possible by using a very, very good process, very easy process. So that's a little bit about that. Now, we definitely, as we kind of thought about the business and personal, we're going to end with the last two that are much more focused on the business side. So maybe I'll turn that over to you now to talk about succession planning.
Sure. I mentioned earlier, lots of times people form a new entity and they're very excited and then they jump right into it and they get caught up in the whirlwind of running the day-to-day operations of growing the business, maybe adding partners, maybe adding functions or properties or whatever it may be. And they fail to set aside time to think about and to plan for what happens when something changes. And something's always going to change. Someone's going to die. Someone's going to want to leave the entity. Somebody's going to get divorced. There may be an insolvency. There are lots of different scenarios that are almost inevitably going to pop up. And someday, if the business succeeds, you're going to want to sell it or transfer it maybe to family members or somehow divest yourself of it. All these things are things that need to be planned for. And the further in advance, the better. They're commonly planned for through a couple of different documents. Sometimes they're described interchangeably. So there can be some nuances between what they accomplish, but generally speaking, it's a shareholder agreement or a buy-sell agreement. And what you're looking to address in those things is how do we handle situations where there's going to be a major event, a triggering event, where somebody's leaving, somebody wants to join, somebody has a life change, or somebody becomes disabled, or dies, what happens to the stock? It's kind of like, think of a business as buying a car with five of your best friends, but without planning ahead as to who's going to get it on which night, who's going to pay for the insurance. What happens when one of those friends wants to get out of the arrangement? Is he going to get bought out? What's his price going to be? How are you going to calculate that price? All of those things transfer and translate to the business context just as well, and on a much bigger scale, obviously. And very important to address that as soon as possible. Very few people put these documents in place at the outset. And maybe, maybe at the outset of a new entity, it might be a little bit premature. You might be a little bit of an overachiever if you were to jump right in and put one of these plans together. It certainly couldn't hurt, and the sooner the better. Commonly, though, the flip side of that coin is commonly people come to me when they've already had a triggering event occur and they're left trying to pick up the pieces without this framework, without this structure in place. What happens if your controlling shareholder suddenly dies and you can't even get a quorum to vote on things or to make major decisions for the company, or to finance or to make payroll? What happens in that context? And if he doesn't have a will on top of it, now you've got involved a surrogates court, and you're looking at a months long process and problem for the business that's going to have trouble operating in that vacuum. Very important. So certainly putting together these types of agreements at the very beginning is ideal, maybe a little too ideal for most people. But if you've got a business that's been operating for, say, a year or two, and it's going well, and you expect it's going to have a long future, now is the time to put this stuff in place, to make sure you have that roadmap. For when life occurs, you'll know how to handle it without having to make it up as you go along, without having to deal with missing pieces in terms of shareholders who may have passed or who may be disabled. All kinds of scenarios that can create problems, cost money, and take time that you may not have if your business is still an ongoing concern and needs all that structure in place to operate.
I mean, I love it. And I think the hand in hand of the next piece to this, there are some things that just have such grave consequences if they're not done. And this is one of those, especially no one plans for the unexpected to happen. That's why it's unexpected. And usually those are negative things, right, that happen at the end of the day. I'm going to be on my last piece here a bit more generic. I'm going to step backwards, but I think these two things are very interrelated. We're going to talk about business valuation and the idea of understanding the value of your business, because a number of the things you just touched on have an overlapping, sort of reason with this. And the purpose is, if something else was to change, what would happen to your business? What would happen if a key shareholder passes away? Does the other maybe surviving spouse want to continue to run the organization, or maybe they have absolutely no interest in doing that? What does it do to the rest of the business? What does it do to obviously the financials of the business? And how does that surviving spouse made whole, right, in order to step away for all the time that other person has put into the business? So we can, just give me that one example when something, grave happens to someone, but what are some other reasons? Let's look at if there is an element of divorce, estate planning, in advance of a transaction. We talked about this earlier. Everyone loves to hear about M&A, and we have a series of meetings on investment banking and M&A, and, I'm ready to liquidate my business or sell it to my employees or do whatever. Waiting to the moment of a transaction to understand the value of their business is often a challenging time. Finding out earlier allows you to plan. Finding out at the last minute takes most of the planning you can do away. And so whether it's financial planning or estate planning, or certainly tax planning, entering years before a transaction, there's a lot of things that you can do, but most of it comes from understanding the business. Where am I today, and where do I want to be in the future, and then what can I do with that? You touched on a few other pieces as well, and we'll do it from this side. One is insurance, right? So making sure that the key stakeholders of the business have proper insurance. If something were to happen, do we know that surviving spouse would be able to be taken care of monetarily? Do we know that we'd be able to hire a fit person to come in and run that part of the business that maybe is now challenged? But just giving you a few other ideas. You may not know what you want to do with your business, but you do have to have a succession plan, because if that unexpected happens, what would you do next? Is the next person aware of what that responsibility would be? Do they have the backing to be able to run the company in that way, whether they have the personal net worth, or can that be generated with one vehicle or another? So there's a lot of reasons for it. I think most people don't get the business valuation because the expectation is expensive. It takes a while. It's kind of cumbersome and kind of makes you think about things you don't want to think about. A lot of what we've talked about today are things you don't want to think about. But if I flip the script on that, knowledge is power, and especially as it relates to the business, understanding where I am today allows me all the range of outcomes. What do I want to do next? How do I want to structure it? And really to address a lot of these things that we've talked about. We don't have the process of an expensive or long valuation. We're able to do the cursory valuation quickly, and we have all of the different abilities to get a more formal, more certified valuation if it's required. You and I had a chat about that the other day. So there's the whole gamut of valuations. And for a lot of people, this idea of it being scary, don't let it be scary. Have that conversation. We're certainly happy to talk to you about that and do that. That isn't something that people need to think about on January 1st, but you should be thinking about it and make it a priority in 2026. I think all of these were relatively important concepts for that. So looking at our time, we promised 30 minutes or less. We're just about there for today. Just putting I guess, a ribbon on this for today. A couple of things that I'd like to make sure that we focus on. Everything that both Jeff and I brought up are things that we should be thinking about in 26. Are they critical? They're maybe not. We can still operate without them, but they're important. And we should really focus on that.
They're very important, and they're an investment. They're an investment in the success of your business, and the success and the strength of your legacy that you're going to leave behind. The valuation you just mentioned, some people might shy away from it because of the cost, the distraction, the amount of time it takes. All those things get far worse if you wait until it's too late. It gets far worse, because then you also lose the component of credibility that you would have had if you had a formula or a number or a methodology in place 5 or 10 years earlier that people could look at and say, well, that was formulated, with clear minds and no pressure. And now you're in a divorce situation where you and I are partners. Your wife decides she wants a divorce, not mine. She would never divorce me. Your wife decides she wants a divorce, and the main asset is your interest in the business. And now she wants half of it. And I don't want your wife as a shareholder, as a partner in that business. Now you've got a problem. And with valuation, everything's going to be under a microscope in that context. Whereas if you had a valuation methodology in place, it would be a much smoother process on the back end.
It's the advantage of planning, right? You can get in front of a lot of these things that are unfortunately not always the best discussions, but these things happen in life. One thing that Alex asked us to do, so he's put, I believe, our phone numbers in the chat. But Jeff, if you want to go first, just read off your email address so that anybody that's listening today can have that.
Sure. My email is jacarlino@kslnlaw.com.
All right, beautiful. And on mine, it's C Healy, CHEALY at pathwaypartnerswa.com. That's W is in wealth, A is in advisors.com. Again, our information for those of you watching the replay, it will be on the screen. For those of you listening live, you have our emails. You certainly know where to find us. Give us a call. We'll give you those emails again and do that. But we wanted to announce we were going to be doing a series together between Kenney, Shelton, Liptak, and Nowak and Pathway Partner Services, just bringing different business owner content to you throughout 2026. Some of it will be in person. We had a great event last year. We were able to bring a few different topics to business owners in person. We'll do some of these virtual in the way that we're doing today. But the goal is to keep them timely, to keep them short, and to keep them actionable. So we look forward to engaging with you throughout 2026. I think we look forward to a great holiday season. We wish everyone to be safe and happy and healthy. And I'll let you say goodbye to everyone as well.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. We hope there was something helpful. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have more questions.
All right, everyone. Be well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.